Good evening and thanks for tuning in to Double Trouble on CTV Sports. I'm Grace Reeder.
And I'm Rachel Veal, and as you can see, we have our volleyball reporter Tyler Patterson here with us. Tyler, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Let's talk some volleyball. We know you've been kind of covering all the games this season. So going into conference play, Rams had dropped two games, one to Duke, one to CU. What were you kind of looking for going into conference play, and did they meet your expectations in the first two conference games?
I think the Rams definitely came out and asserted their dominance in the Mountain West. They came out with 2 sweeps against New Mexico and UNLV, so I think they got back on track after losing to CU in the 5th set.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see any girls that have really shown a bunch of leadership styles? Anybody in particular that you would call out?
Jasmine Hanna and Sonia Cheesmich both have been leaders for this Rams team, and look forward to them continuing to lead these young players that we have for the Rams going forward.
I think in particular what impresses me about Jasmine Hanna is just her poise when they're losing and when they're winning. She's a very graceful person. I think in New Mexico too, she was playing phenomenal. She just had kill after kill after kill at the beginning of that game, but she still was acting like they were losing.
She's real even kill.
She's very poised. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And then lastly, how do you see the season playing out for the Rams? Do you have any postseason hopes for them?
Definitely. Well, I think everyone around Fort Collins has postseason hopes for the Rams, as they've been to 21 straight NCAA tournaments. So I think we're more looking for them to win the Mountain West and turn that around, as they've done it from 2012 to 2015, but they lost last year. So we're looking for them to get back on track and win the Mountain West and come out on top again.
Tyler said before the show that he said they're going to win everything. The entire tournament.
Is that what you said, Tyler?
Win it all.
Win it all? Hey,
that would be great for us.
You never know. They play best against the best teams, I think, so we'll see.
I think they have a lot of potential, and they have a really high ceiling. So
yeah, we'll see. All right. The CSU women's soccer team has also started out conference play. Sports reporter Alex Clow got the chance to sit down with freshman Allie Paletto to talk about her early success.
A hat trick in soccer is when a player scores 3 or more goals in a single match. Now this is very difficult and it is rarely seen at the professional level. But for one Colorado State freshman, she made her dreams a reality.
It was a crazy game. I wasn't expecting to score a hat trick. It was obviously my team. I got 3 amazing balls from my teammates, and I couldn't have done it without them. And things were just clicking. We played really well, we played together, we possessed that game, which I think is a huge part of why we're going to start to do well now that we're going into conference. And just the momentum, I think that we really build off of each other, and the energy that game was amazing, and I really fed off of my teammates, and they're the reason it happened.
Most freshmen typically do not get a lot of playing time, but Allie has proved herself time and time again, and she earned herself a spot on the field.
She's the little engine that could, and and that's one of the reasons she gets the opportunities, because she just works and works and works.
And all of that hard work has definitely paid off, as she has already seen 474 minutes of playing time this season. But I asked her if there could be another hat trick in the future.
I really hope so. That's always the goal. But also, because we play 2 up top, just connecting with the other forward or even the midfielders when they're in. And then I think going into conference, we just need to keep our confidence and our composure. And then, I mean, one of our core values is resilience, and that's one of my favorite things. And I think that our team is really starting to embody that.
With the women's soccer team, I'm Alex Clow, CTV 11 Sports.
We look forward to seeing much more from Paletto, who has been taking names in her debut season.
Had a bye this weekend, but we'll head to Hawaii this week to start conference play. Mike Bobo talked about his expectations for that game.
Yeah, it was the message to the team was this is our, season number 2 right here as we start our non-conference play, and it's just like it's week 1. This week play in Hawaii, and it's it's one day at a time, 1 week at a time. Conference games are huge and are important for us, and we've got a tough task this week as we travel on the road, to play a very good football team.
I also got a chance to sit down with wide receiver Michael Gallup to talk a little bit what it's like being one of the top-ranked receivers.
I couldn't even tell. It kind of feels like it's supposed to be somewhat normal, I guess. I've been an underdog pretty much since high school. I was always behind somebody. There's always somebody who's better than me on the team, always somebody who had that, extra offer than I did. But, now, it feels kind of normal to me. But I like it. It puts a little more attention out there. It gets CSU's name out there. Help these other cats, you know, get a little bit more exposure. So, I mean, it's good for the program.
Grace, we talked a little bit last week about what our expectations were for that game, but what are your expectations now looking forward to this season?
I'm really excited for conference play. I think the Mountain West has become a really fun conference. I'm excited for the Boise game, I'm excited for the Air Force game, and I'm very excited for the Wyoming game, as you know very well.
She has been talking about the Wyoming game all year. She is very excited, even though we're going there in the middle of November.
It's going to be cold, but Josh Allen.
She is
That's all I have to say.
But what are you thinking for the game on Saturday?
I'm pretty excited. I think that both of teams are coming off of a pretty tough loss, CSU to Bama, and then Hawaii and Wyoming had a really intense game this past week that went into overtime. Wyoming won that one, so I think Hawaii's going to come in with a little bit of Mountain West vengeance, and I think CSU has also had some disappointing games this season, and they'll come in with some vengeance as well. So I'm looking for a pretty emotionally charged game.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to seeing Hawaii's quarterback. He's definitely a thrower and a runner. And he's not afraid to run, too, which I always find very impressive for quarterbacks. So it'll be a good game.
He's the only last name on their team that I can say, so I appreciate
that is very true.
as well. All right, well, stay tuned, because up next we talk about a couple teams who've kicked off their season right.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back from the break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Double Trouble on CTV Sports, and the men's golf team started out their season right, coming in 5th at the William H. Tucker Intercollegiate Meet. CSU topped several rivals, including CU, New Mexico, San Diego State, and Nevada. And as the season's been going for sports, we will take any win over CU, so thanks, men's golf team. Senior Max Olfkeef came in 1st for the Rams, coming in 9th overall, and the Rams will head next to the Paintbrush Invitational hosted by DU on October 9th and 10th.
CU senior cross-country runner Jerrell Mock successfully defended his Roy Griek Invitational title this past week with an 8K time of 24:52. Let me repeat that, 24:52. I don't know if you all know how fast that is, but I ran 5Ks for cross-country in high school, and a 24-minute 5K would have been all right with me. Mock was also named USTF CCA NCAA Division I Men's National Athlete of the Week. They're going to really have to shorten the name of their awards. In other words, Mock is starting out his senior year very, very well. This is a highly competitive race with teams like number 25 Michigan State. While Mock edged out his teammates, the rest of the pack came in close. Cole Rockhold came in 8th overall, Eric Hammer 10th, and Grant Fisher 11th. The Rams now have a 3-week break before they head to the Nuttycombe, Wisconsin Invitational, one of the most competitive meets of the year.
You know, honestly, Grace, they have a lot of unique names for invitationals and tournaments and all sorts of stuff.
Nuttycombe.
Yeah, that's something else. But that's all the sports news that Grace and I have for you guys. But stay tuned, because Tim is going to lay down some worldly sports knowledge for you guys.
He is. Don't change that channel.
You are listening to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins with DJ Meanbeat,
DJ Nightshade, DJ Wildcard. Music to me is one of the best creative outlets that I can think of. An escape from the real world.
Music to me is an expression of love.
Go from like folk to hip hop to like classic rock, 1960s bossa nova. With music, there's like no boundaries.
I work here because I love music, and you do too.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. big time.
Hello, sports fans. You're watching Tim's Call, and I am your host, Tim McCall. This week's top story took place not on the field, but on the sidelines. Players and staff from just about every NFL team took a knee, raised a fist, or locked arms in a form of protest during the national anthem this week. This was in response to the president calling upon NFL owners to fire any employee that protests during the anthem. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell voiced his approval of players exercising their right to free speech in a statement released prior to the Sunday kickoffs. With a stamp of approval from Goodell, this is something that we will likely continue to see in the NFL, and it is also something that we will be looking for in college football. Closer to home, Rams head coach Mike Bobo had some words in his press conference this week about kneeling during the anthem.
To me, we live in the greatest country in the world, and it's the greatest country in the world because of the freedom that we have. And I would be respectful to if any of my players wanted to express themselves. That's in the country that we live in. It's a free country, and able to do what they want to do.
Next, in the NBA news, if you live under a rock or only watch CTV, first, thank you so much. Also, you probably missed a trade that happened this weekend that sent Carmelo Anthony from the New York Knicks to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Anthony will join reigning league MVP Russell Westbrook and fellow new arrival Paul George. Those three players have combined for 20 All-Star Game appearances throughout their careers and all averaged over 22 points per game in the NBA last season. In other words, the Thunder are looking really good, and the Knicks, on the other hand, are not looking so great. Lastly, the NBA season has come to an end, and the playoff race for the final wildcard spot in both the American League and the National League is heating up. In the American League, entering today, the Twins held on to a 4.5-game lead over the Angels for the last wildcard spot in the American League. If they can hold on to that lead, they will earn the right to play the Yankees in the AL wildcard game next week. Things are a little closer in the National League as the Rockies are clinging to just a 2-game lead over the Brewers and a 2.5-game lead over the Cardinals for the final remaining wildcard spot. The winner of the race will travel to Arizona to face the Diamondbacks in the NL wildcard game after the Diamondbacks clinched home field advantage for that game yesterday. With such a close race in both leagues, the last week of the regular season is bound to be filled with drama, jubilation, and heartbreak for all the teams involved. That's all I have for Tim's Call tonight. Next up, I will be joined by members of Rocky Mountain Student Media as we debate the most important topics in the world of sports on the FOCO Sports Show. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. you're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
Okay, so we drowned the fire.
Yep.
Stirred it. Drowned it again. And now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
Hello, Rams. You're watching the FOCO Sports Show. Unfortunately, Tim McCall has a nasty nosebleed, so I will be hosting. But if Tim runs on, you know where he was. All right, so we've got our panelists with us. We've got some Collegian guys and some KCSU guys. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Eddie Hers with the Rocky Mountain Collegian.
And I'm Javon Harris with the Collegian as well.
I'm Nick Baker from KCSU.
I'm Brian Buck.
Awesome. All right, so again, Tim McCall may join us later on. So if you see Tim run on, now you know why. It's because his nosebleed stopped. Sorry about that, Tim.
It's dry out there.
I know. It's dry. Hey, it's Colorado. Winter's coming. We don't blame him. So to start off, we're going to talk a little NBA, guys. So does Carmelo Anthony's move make a big difference in the West? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm going to say it does. And also, don't forget about the addition of Paul George earlier in the summer. I mean, that's a starting lineup that now is Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and then you got Roberson and Adams, who are great on defense. They had career seasons in rebounding and points last year as well. I think the main question is if Melo can accept stepping into the role of the third best player. He's a guy who likes to hog the ball. He wants to be the superstar, but that's not who he is right now. He is the third best player on that team. There will be some growing pains in terms of distributing the ball. I mean, between George, Westbrook, and Melo, those are guys who all averaged over 22 points a game last season. So I think if they can figure out that balance, they're absolutely a contender. They have the second best Vegas odds right now to win the Western Conference at minus 750. So plus 750, excuse me. But yeah, I think definitely a contender.
Javon, you look like you maybe disagree a little bit.
No chance. Yeah, I'm with it. But sorry, Tim is hurt. You're a Philly fan, and then you guys are always hurt. So I mean, you're probably used to it by now. But no way that makes them a contender, especially in the tough Western Conference. I just don't see it. Carmelo's coming off the season. He averaging 18 shots a game. Westbrook, the reigning MVP, who shoots the ball 24 times, and then Paul George, who wants to shoot the ball 20 times as well. I just don't think the Thunder and their team is good enough to compete with the San Antonio Spurs and the Golden State Warriors. When you look at a championship team like the Warriors last year, and then the Cavs the year before that, but they're a complete team. They have a good starting five and they have a good bench core, and I feel like the Thunder don't have that. The first name that comes to mind on their bench is Raymond Felton, who's been on more teams than Baskin-Robin has flavors. So it's like I don't see that. I don't see it meshing like that as well as like the Warriors did with their four superstars, because Steve Kerr was able to do that because Steve Kerr is such a great coach. I don't think Billy Donovan can do that because he had a hard time with KD and Russell Westbrook. So now he's going to have a hard time with two other egos. It looks good on paper. good on paper. I'll give them the 4 seed, but I just don't see it. I don't see them coming out of the West and beating the Warriors. So.
I got to agree with you.
4 seed.
Four seed I like a lot because the 3 iso ball players, they can score points on different evenings easily. You've got 3 different guys who are really used to taking over a game and just running with it.
Yeah.
When it comes to the playoffs, they just don't have the keys to do that. Exactly. One of the things that I think is a big piece for them, they still don't have any good rebounders. When a guard, your point guard, is the best rebounder you have on the court, that's a tough time. And they just got rid of Enes Kanter to get Melo. They lost points in the rebounding category there. That just makes it harder on them. Sure, they'll win a lot of playoff games. I wouldn't be or regular season games. I wouldn't be surprised to see them put up 60 regular season wins. But come playoff time, they're going to get easily handled.
But that makes them a contender. When I say contender, I would say a top 4 seed is a contender. I agree with you. There are flaws in that team. I mean, Steven Adams averaged only 8 rebounds last year, and he's probably, their second or third best.
In limited time as well.
In limited time. No, I agree. There are flaws in that team, but I think with all of that talent, how could you not be a contender? I would be surprised with anything worse than a 3 or 4 seed, and that qualifies as a contender in my mind.
I think we also have to think about postseason though. How many of those guys have NBA titles?
Exactly. Or experience.
Well, and then it's going to look a lot like the Bulls of last year, where they have a lot of flashy players, but they just can't mesh together, and there's nothing they can do. You know, there's locker room troubles, and when there's locker room troubles, the bench doesn't perform. And, you know, like Brian said, with no bench, just 3 guys all shooting for themselves, they're not going to win playoffs.
And essentially, they're now Carmelo's on the team, right? So now you're putting him at the 4. He's already a defensive liability as it is. So now you're putting him at the 4, and it's just not going to work in today's game. And essentially, what they're trying to do, and what all these teams, or these super teams, are trying to do, is outscore the Warriors. What you should focus on is how to defend the Warriors. You're trying to outscore a team who's not going to let you outscore them. There's no way. And the Warriors take pride in defense because they literally have 4 good defenders, and then they could bring in another premier defender and Andre Iguodala off the bench. And if you look at the Thunder, who do you have? Roberson as their premier defender? Paul George, he's a good 2-way defender, but then you have Carmelo Anthony. Who are you going to stick him on? You know? It's just like, I just see a lot of flaws in that team. It looks good. I think they're going to be an incredible offensive team. I just don't see it.
Something you definitely should think about too is, I know there's no NBA title experience, but you have to think that could motivate this team. This could be the last chance for all 3 of these guys to have a good chance of winning a championship. I mean, if you look at it, they all can opt out of their contract after this year. The Thunder would have to pay $310 million plus bonuses to re-sign all of them. So they probably have 1 shot at this, and those 3 superstars combined have only been to 1 championship, and that's Westbrook. So they're motivated.
Egos with that, though. All 3 of them, not only do they want to try and win now, but they want to be on a good team come next year. And an MVP gets you paid a lot of money. All 3 of them are trying to win MVPs for themselves this year. I don't think any one of those guys are going out there thinking teamwork is how I get a big contract next year. I'm also really worried about the injury bug, because they traded away a lot of pieces. Domantas Sabonis, who looked like a great rookie. Victor Oladipo, who's a quality piece. A bunch of different guys. Doug McDermott, Enes Kanter. If any one of those big 3 guys goes down, this isn't a team anymore. This is back to being Westbrook by himself, and he has less pieces around him to be by himself. So this could get ugly quick if the wrong things happen.
Well, I'm going to jump on your point about teamwork there. I think I'm going to hop on the Golden State Warriors bandwagon, and I think that's why they're so successful, is because they play as a team. They're not an individual guy, and I don't see that at all with this new formation. So now we can use that to move on a little bit. Let's talk football a little bit more in my arena. What are you guys looking for? What are you guys looking for coming into the season, team-wise?
For college football?
Are we talking college football right now?
College football, I apologize.
Okay, well, I'm going to say right now the 3 best teams are clearly Bama, Clemson, and Oklahoma. There's no question. I think obviously there's a long way to go, but I think that 4th playoff spot is up for grabs right now. When I'm looking at Penn State, I mean, Barkley is an absolute playmaker, had 305 all-purpose yards last week. I mean, the dude looks like he's playing NFL Street out there with his jukes
Did you see
and
that
his stiff arms. I mean, this kid's ridiculous. I know it was a close win in Iowa, but here's something like you have to think about. Penn State has not really had to deal with this type of pressure in a while. Yes, they went to the Rose Bowl last year, but that was kind of a surprise, so all eyes weren't on them. All eyes have been on them from the get-go this season, so they'll get better at that throughout the season. So they're one of the teams I think that could do it. The other one, way bigger of a sleeper, another Big Ten team, is the Wisconsin Badgers. They're ranked 10 right now, and I don't even think they're a great team. I think they're probably the 15th best team in the country, but doesn't matter. Not at all. Here is why. Their schedule. They're in the Big Ten West. That's the side of the Big Ten that doesn't include Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. So they're granted with an easy schedule. I mean, they have 9 remaining games. In 8 of those, they'll be favored by double-digit points. The game circuit on that schedule is against Michigan in Madison, second to last week of the season. They have beat Michigan there the last 3 times. I mean, they win that game and they win a Big Ten championship. They're undefeated into the playoffs.
You got to point out, though, how easy is it going to be for them to win a Big Ten championship? I got 2 open spots in the playoffs right now that are completely up for grabs. Bama and Clemson are walking there. But you start to look at the schedules and the situations for teams to make the playoff. Right now, it's not easy. Oklahoma has 3 tough tests left in the Big 12, and they look really bad against an 0-4 Baylor team. They still have TCU, who handled Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, led by NFL talent Mason Rudolph, and West Virginia at the end of the year, which is no sleeper. That's a lot of minds to avoid. You also got SC playing 4 tough matchups in the Pac-12, 3 road tests, and 3 ranked teams. Utah at home but ranked, and Colorado on the road. Those are all tough. You've got Washington, who nobody's sold on yet. I like them a lot, but last year's performance against Bama in the playoff is going to make a lot of voters hesitant to put them in the playoff again. And you've got a lot of mediocre teams from 8 through 10 to 15. Like you said, Wisconsin at 10, they could be 15. There's a lot of pieces to pop up. I think this might be the best year for a group of 5 team to make the playoff.
Absolutely.
And San Diego State might be one of those teams because they beat Stanford. They beat a Pac-12 Arizona State, who might not be that good, but that's 2 Power 5 victories this year, to go along with a Rashad Penny guy who I think is going to be in New York come December 10th.
Oh, absolutely. He's the 2nd leading rusher in the NCAA right now. Has 716 yards already. That's ridiculous. I mean, he had 128 last week, and that was his least so far in a week. And it's not like they're not playing anybody. I mean, he handled Stanford. Penny is ridiculous. I would say, honestly, if the Heisman voting was right now, he would, without a doubt, be top 3.
Well, we can use that as a transition. Who do you guys think for the Heisman this year? You just gave your vote.
Yeah,
I know it's early, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's early, but I think
Yeah.
I'm split between 2. I think even though they just didn't do too well against not TCU, Baylor. I think Baker Mayfield is up there. He's just having an incredible season. You see the way he's talking to other teams and throwing flags. Like, he's just a stud. He's a stud. Yeah, exactly. But he's performing. He has no interceptions, 13 touchdowns, 75% completion percentage. He looks like a stud. And then I think Saquon Barkley just looks like a Madden player or something. Did you see that? The hurdle, and then he got like it's just
he's literally playing a video game there. It's ridiculous.
I think it's between them 2 right now, as far as I can tell, between who is, because they're just those 2 teams. Those 2 players are having unbelievable start, and both their teams are 4-0. So we'll see when they start playing better teams. We'll see how they favor. So.
I think Saquon Barkley should just win an award for having the most muscular lower half I've ever seen.
Oh my God!
His legs are massive. The other guy, I like Baker Mayfield a lot, but I'm going to go back to the Oklahoma schedule. I think it's tough for a guy to win a Heisman or at least make it to New York without being a team that's a national contender. That's why I like Jake Fromm at Georgia. The freshman, we've seen a freshman trend in Heisman voting. Also, Kelly Bryant in Clemson, another freshman. Those 2 guys have a great shot to make it to New York, because they're a national contending teams. If Georgia takes down Bama, if Clemson continues on the path that's pretty much easy sailing, those are 2 guys that have really great shots. Baker Mayfield, another quarterback that has an easy shot to get to New York.
I think that Barkley and Mayfield are both going to end up like in the top 3, but I think people are giving them a little bit too much credit right now. I mean, Barkley is only 7th in the NCAA in rushing. I'm saying only because you're talking a Heisman. Okay, Mayfield is 9th in passing. Those aren't Heisman numbers if it ended right now. I think they will end up there, but they're not. I mean, you mentioned Oklahoma State's quarterback, Rudolph, right? He's second in NCAA in passing yards. I mean, their wide receiver, Washington, is 2nd in receiving yards. I mean, those 2 guys have incredible resumes right now. So, like, if we're talking about Mayfield and Barkley, we got to talk about those guys. I mean, that Oklahoma State offense, like you mentioned, is insane. 44+ in their first 3 games and defensive touchdown in their first 3 games. And the team's insane.
Going back to national championship.
yeah, sorry, we're back in there. Sorry.
Oklahoma State got embarrassed by TCU.
They did.
That's the kind of thing that gets you out of New York. College football is a power ranking game, and every week your ranking gets slotted. So you talk about an Oklahoma State team that, yeah, they had 1 bad week, but this isn't like the NFL where, the Baltimore Ravens go to London and they get hurt by the Jags, and that makes them look bad. But everybody says they're still a good team. Oklahoma State just got knocked down a big peg, and they've got to spend a lot of time working themselves back up, and that's really tough to win a Heisman while you're working.
I'm going to cut you guys off because we are all out of time. I really apologize. But come back next week because we will fight some more. That's all we have for you. We'll see you next week.